Listening to the Inland Talk Express, 1050 AM and 106.5 FM, KCAA Loma Linda.
Today, you guys are listening to Whatever Works on KCAA 1050 AM and 106.5 FM. I'm Sam Works.
I'm Kyle Kerrigan.
And tonight is going to be a special night because usually we have one guest usually on the weekends. But tonight we have two guests, right? There we go. So the first guest is Groot Sullivan. He is from True News, and we're going to be talking a little bit about how the news industry has changed, has developed, and things like that. And then we also have Bruce, and he's going to be talking about his crazy life experiences and the events that are going to be coming up actually this month in September, right? A little sneak peek. We're going to be talking about like a Mad Max event, right? Yeah, so I hope you guys stay tuned for the whole hour. If you guys are driving, hey, do some loops, stay on the freeway. Drive safe. I know it's raining out here in SoCal, in the Inland Empire specifically. So let's get straight to it. But before we do that, Kyle, give us a little shout out to our sponsors.
SMJRadio.com. No negative news, no politics, just feel good music. And our man, Secondhand Sam, up at Second Chance Thrift Store next to USA Subs on Ecapa Boulevard.
Yeah, go check them out, guys.
Check them out.
We really appreciate our sponsors, and they appreciate us. And if you guys want to, partake in this sponsorship, please just contact us. We're on Instagram. Just look up KCAA Whatever Works. We have a website.
KCAA whateverworks.com. All our links are there, too. You can go to our previous podcasts.
Yes, and we've done, I think, over 100 shows.
Wow.
Yes, so if you guys want to go back and listen to any of them, and every week is always something different, right? So if you guys want to go back, you guys can go to Spotify. You guys can go on the KCA website. You guys can just look us up anywhere and, review any of our shows. And if you guys want to come on the show, again, please contact us on Instagram, Facebook, website, all that good stuff. So let's bring in our first guest, Groot Sullivan.
Hi, Kyle. How you doing?
Hey, what's going on? How you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you too. Where are you? Where are you at?
I'm calling you from Orlando, Florida.
From the East Coast to the West Coast, baby.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's late here. It's past my bedtime.
We'll make sure we keep you up and keep things interesting. Let's talk about a little bit about True News. Like, what is True News?
Yep. True News is a project to really reinvent the way we produce and consume and interact with news. It came up in my mind several years ago, and I've been running this project myself, and now I'm bringing it out to the public. And it was really because I looked into news and was shocked at what I found at the state of the news industry.
And what was so shocking about the news industry?
Well, I'd start with this. I'd say first, we all need to recognize that we really are very dependent on news. Whether you, not only for the check of people in power, but also for visibility on topics that you need to be aware of, whether it's a road that's closed or a flood or violence in your neighborhood or war or boil your water because of a sewer break or, you name it. There's all kinds of things that we rely on the news organizations and journalists in particular to bring to our attention. And if you look at it across the world, you see that. Can you imagine if we heard news only from the corporations or from the government, as some countries have? That's not such a good story, I don't think. But then the problem is that things have changed. And we can even touch upon 9/11 because that was part of that change. The news industry has changed because social media and search engines came about. And so what happens was they become the ones who make the money from advertising, right, and selling data about you. The news organizations relied on advertising as well, classified ads and all kinds of things like this. So what happens is the news organizations then become stressed in terms of their revenue streams, right? They don't have enough money. They start laying people off, but yet we're all dependent on getting good news. So there's a vicious cycle here that's not so cool. I think that's what happened. That's what I looked into. Once I started talking to journalists, this became very clear because a lot of them don't have any job satisfaction or confidence that they're going to keep their jobs. So, and who suffers? Well, we all do, of course. but also a lot of the areas, like rural areas in America and around the world, they don't have enough people to fund newsrooms to keep them going. So now you have journalists that are being asked to cover giant swaths of land, like 400-mile areas, and they just can't do that. So this comes to the second part that I found, which was the change in how we consume. We all hang out on search engines and social media. Well, I'm not on social media, but because I like my privacy. But 52% of Americans now get their news from digital platforms. So let's take the news organizations under pressure, right? Because they're not getting the revenue. We're consuming things now from social media and search engines. Okay, great. We know the news organizations are having a really hard time making ends meet. And there's another big difference: the news accuracy. So back in the day, when it used to take days or weeks to send news, there were very few people producing the news, and it traveled by literally horseback or whatever to get there, be printed, and then come out. Radio was the first game changer in news because I could talk on the radio like I'm doing now with you guys, and many, many people can hear that story, as it were. So the way that the news accuracy was affected is because now you have real-time communication. You can communicate with people around the world instantly on Twitter and other places, right? I've got instant communication. I've got lots more people producing, and put it in quotes, news. So I've got that instantaneous, distribution network. I've got an explosion of people creating news, and I've got the pressure to deliver quicker, because whoever tells that story first gets the eyeballs and therefore makes the money. So it's kind of like this vicious cycle has more pieces to it, right? It's not such a good thing. We've changed the way we produce or consume news. The news organizations are hurting, so everybody's trying to deliver quicker. And this is where we can tie in 9/11 a little bit. When 9/11 happened, there was another little aspect that came in, which is kind of interesting to look at, which is patriotism came into the fore in everybody's mind. And so the stuff that happened after 9/11, with the weapons of mass destruction stuff, Saddam Hussein, all that stuff that was happening after that, a lot of the journalists say that at that time, their normal process of fact-checking and source-checking and stuff like that was not done because everybody was so hyped up on being a patriot and go get these guys who did this and that kind of stuff, that affected the way that news was produced. So the news accuracy had a hard time after 9/11 as well. Here's a quick story. So of the 10 websites in Myanmar, that country you may have heard of, back in 2015, most engagement on social media, on Facebook, were from 10 websites from legitimate media in 2015. 3 years later, they accounted for 0. All the engagement had instead gone to fake news and what we call clickbait. So we got a pretty bad story here. We got the people who are the good journalists out there who want to do the right thing, right, are having more and more difficulty doing it. The folks who want to produce stuff and drive advertising traffic, right, which is what social media does, and the search engine. We got these really conflicting stuff. So this led me to say, okay, what are the dangers, right, to us all, and how might I be able to fix these? So we can go down the list. It's a pretty simple list, really. First, stories without any facts and evidence. So, you look at a story and it's got things that are said in there and it looks like a fact. And this is what got me at first. I'm like, man, I don't know whether that's true or not. Where can I go to find that? And there's a few fact-checking sites, right, you can go to and check stuff. But that's the problem. So with True News, what we do is we reinvent this process. If you're going to write a story and you're going to publish a story, you have to have facts and evidence actually created as part of that story. And all of that is wrapped up in a way to interact with the consumer so you can get in here and comment and vote on these things. So we have stories, we have facts, and we have evidence. And these are things that you can actually see in the story. That's the special sauce we're talking about, really, to fight disinformation and propaganda is what it really is, right? Somebody's doing something that's not right. Now, disinformation has been around forever. Go back in history, since man has been around, there's been disinformation. For example, if you think of Napoleon, right, this leader of France from years ago, right, back in the 1800s. When you think of Napoleon, you think of him, what do you think of? Well, quite likely, you think a short dude, very short guy. But he was actually not short at all. That was disinformation produced by the British to help their war effort against the French. He was actually 5'7", which was above average height for a French person at that time. So this disinformation thing is not new. Propaganda is not new, but we got to fight it. So how do we fight it? Show me your facts. Show me your evidence. Make it part of your story so I can see it all. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Then we go on to the next thing, which is the echo chamber effect. If you're familiar with this concept, the echo chamber is, if I'm a social media company, I work in software. I've been a software architecture guy for many decades, right? So social media companies and search engines, how do they make money? Because you're on their product, and they're delivering ads to you, and they're selling information about you to other companies. Okay, that's their business model. What does that mean? That means they want you to stay on their platform, right? So therefore, they write their software in such a way that they watch what you're doing, they watch what you're looking at, and they're feeding you more of that. So if you're looking at a particular topic of news that you're interested in, they're giving you more of what you've already seen. You're not going to see an alternative view. You're not going to see that disputing piece of evidence that makes that fact not true. You're not going to see, the opposite view. That's called an echo chamber in the vernacular, right? So echo chambers are bad, and it's because their business models drive them to keep you on their platform any way they can, and that's proven to be the right way to do it. Well, we don't do that on our system. True News, if you sign up for True News and you set up searches, you can set up searches for your topics of interest that you care about. And that's really the sweet spot here. If I care about whatever, pick a topic, I can set up a search and I can see everything about that topic, every fact, every piece of evidence, and every story that's linked to those topics, like a hashtag or a person or an event or whatever. There's a bunch of criteria that you can set up searches for. So that gives me the ability to break that echo chamber, get rid of that one. So that's good. The next one, rush to publish. As we talked about, right? Now we understand that all this is all about getting the eyeballs, right? And getting the dollars in terms of the advertising, the ads that I can show you. I win if I'm first. And this is bad in all aspects. It used to be that the fact checking was done beforehand, but it's not anymore. And we see this in the software industry too. I won't get into that, but it's the same thing. It's the rush to get it out, right? To beat the other guy. Can you imagine, like Anne Heche, who passed away, may she rest in peace? They reported she was dead when she wasn't. Can you imagine if you're a loved one of Anne Heche and you're reading this on social media when it's not true? And there's many examples of this. The rush to publish. So that's one that we got to fix, right? And I think with True News, if we become, as I hope anyway, if we become the place to go to find the truth, your truth, right? Then that rush to publish won't be as much. That one's a hard one to break because everybody's on social media. Finally, just a couple more, clickbait. So, and this is very interesting. I'll give you a little tip that I learned from a class I took on this topic, actually. Clickbait, of course, is our brains focused on negative things more than positive things, proven by studies. It's part of our primal nature. Our primal brain is to watch for threats and be prepared, which is why we react so well to what they call clickbait. Clickbait is a headline that drives emotion in you, anger, disgust, fear, that's a big one, whatever, right? Any strong emotion. Really, what you're being is you're being manipulated. I, for one, don't like being manipulated. They're manipulating you into sharing things specifically constructed to manipulate you. Proven in research. This is all very well known. There's a technique that I recommend to avoid this that they came up with back in the mid-2010s. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes, but that's really bad, the clickbait. So we'll deal with that in True News by having a reputation score that's attached to every author that produces stuff, and they'll have a rating of things, and their reputation will be hurt in a visible, transparent way when they do something like a clickbait headline. And they'll know this ahead of time before they publish, because there's a moderation step, that not an editing step, not a censorship step, a moderation step to make sure that they're playing by the rules, right, in terms of what to publish. Next thing, bullying, stalking, violence against people expressing their opinions, big problem, right? Huge problem on social media. From a news perspective, right, what do we want to do here? Well, we want to give you anonymity so that you can express your opinion for real, right, without fear of personal attacks. How we do that is ties to the underlying security infrastructure of True News, called Mias Identity. This is a groundbreaking thing that I actually came up with 10 years ago, and this underlies the True News product, allowing you to be anonymous on True News, be a verified person, no bots, no botnets, no trolls, no nothing, right? Just real people, verified, and you can then avoid some of this bullying and stalking because you can answer polls, you can comment, you can vote, you can reward journalists at your convenience using your alias, using an alias that you get assigned when you sign up. And don't tell anybody your alias, because we won't, and it's highly secured, more than banks do. So that's the bullying and stalking piece. Almost done. Last couple pieces is deep fakes. If you've heard of deep fakes, here's what those are, right? Those are video and audio now that's indistinguishable from a real person who never said those things that they're saying on that video or their audio. Tom Cruise, the lady who plays Wonder Woman, right? So these are all things you can look up on the internet and see these deep fakes. This is bad, right? So now I can fake stuff that politicians or leaders of companies or whatever can say. How do we fight this? What I tell people when they ask about this topic is we have a thing we call corroboration. So if I'm a corporate leader or if I'm a politician or if I'm whoever and I want to put out a piece of news that is my take on something, my opinion, my stance on a particular topic, I tell them, make sure that you have people around you that can corroborate that this event actually took place and they were actually there. So in True News, if somebody posts a piece of evidence, other people who may have been at that event, right, or researched it independently and found the same document or the same image or whatever, interviewed the same person, they can come in, they can step up and say, hey, I corroborate this thing. I was there, or I researched it independently, I digitally signed a document, I state that I am. Pretty amazing, really. So, and finally, consuming without action. I for one, you read the news, you get mad about stuff, and that's as far as it goes, right? When was the last time you ever got asked, you participated in a national poll? I haven't. I don't answer phone numbers I don't know, right? When was the last time you called your senator or your state senator or whoever and expressed an opinion? A lot of people don't think that makes any difference. In terms of consuming without action, we want to turn that around. So as I mentioned already, in True News, you have the ability to, one, vote on something. Is this story good, bad, or indifferent? This fact, is it true or is it false? Given the evidence, what's your opinion? This piece of evidence, do you think it's real or do you think it's fake? Did you corroborate it? Did you not? These are things that I can get involved with. I can comment on all those things as well and have a conversation with my alias or even post it with my real name. I can reward. I can say, hey, this person cares about this topic. They found this great evidence. They got this great interview. Man, I'm gonna give them 20 cents or $1 or whatever. I can do rewarding of people as well through the system. So that consuming without action, we got to change that. Let's take it one step further. What if you, for topics that you care about and for the values that you have expressed right in your profile, what if we could mark things that your representatives of the government were doing? What if we could make a little scorecard for you that could help you in the next election to remember the things that have happened over the last X number of years until this election has happened that you care about because they align or don't align with what you believe? That's something that I'm noodling around on how to do that part. And I think that would be extremely powerful to help people kind of remember, because we have short memories, right? We don't remember this stuff over time. So it would be sure nice if we could have that kind of scorecard so that when this election comes up or whatever, I can look at that politician that works for me, basically represents me in a government, and say, yeah, that was not cool, man. Yeah, you're done with me, right? And I'm going to find somebody else. So that's it in a nutshell. The True News project was born of my, research and abhorrence of what's going on in the news industry. We all need this. It's critical stuff. And with all the pressures and all the fake news and all the propaganda that's out there, no matter where you sit politically, it affects everybody. So let's see if we can fix it. And that's why I started this project several years ago, to address it.
And where can they find this? Is this an app or is this a website?
Yes.
Or it's an app.
It's going to be an app. We call it seed stage funding level, right? So we're beginning the startup. We've been in development for about 5 years. We're at the final stages of development. If people want to check it out, they can go out to truenews.global. That's True News, TRUENEWS, truenews.global, and check out the site. We're about to launch within the next month or so. We're going to launch a crowdfunding. I've been funding this myself, and I'm not a rich guy, so to put something out that has this kind of depth to it needs a lot of resources, right? So I want to see, what do people think, right? Do they have the same kind of passion about this that I do? I think it can be a game changer for all of us, and I want to see what the outcome is of this crowdfunding that's going to be coming up. TrueNews.global is the website.
So, just to recap, True News is basically an unbiased platform where people can get not just one side of a story, but every angle to really verify if this is like legit, right? That's
exactly right. Yeah.
With the news, is it just journalists that go on there and report what's going on, or can anyone at any time be able to post or do things like that in order to put out the content?
Anybody can be what we call a contributor, a journalist, whether a citizen journalist or a professional journalist or a newsroom can work with us as well to do that. To do that, you got to sign up. So you got to sign a couple of things and make sure that you understand kind of your responsibility as a journalist. But anybody can do it. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good. And may I ask, why has it taken 5 years to build this up?
Well, that's my fault because because me being a software guy, wanting to do it right the first time, usually the way you do these startup things is you put something together real quick, a little app demo kind of thing, a UI as we call it, user interface, right? And you just trot that out, and then you go try to find money for people. But I wanted to do this. I had the security piece already in hand about how I wanted to do that. That's a whole other conversation about how to help people get off the surveillance wheel of social media, et cetera. That's a different conversation. But I had that stuff already, so I wanted to build on that. So it's my fault for taking as long as it has, because there's a lot of parts to it, and I'm self-funding it myself. And like I said, I'm not a rich guy, so it's taken that time because of that. But the good news is that unlike most startups, it's not a piece of junk. It's architected correctly. It can scale globally. It has all the right pieces in place. And in terms of security, that's the most important part to me, to make sure that it's right. So it's building on a very solid foundation. Got to get it over the finish line, and it takes a lot of resources to get that done, as you can imagine, right? When you're going to put something together,
right?
That's got to scale,
So if I may ask, are there like restrictions or people who you won't allow to be on True News? Not to get like political or anything, but let's just say like Donald Trump, like he starts posting on True News and doing this, doing that. Are there? Yeah. How does that work? How do you guys maintain an unbiased program?
That's an excellent question. So yes, we don't believe in censoring anybody. We are not acting as I am not a journalist, right? And this is not a journalistic organization, True News, right? We're a tech thing, right, to make this happen. So here's how it works. Anybody can write stories, facts, and evidence. If you want to put it out there, that's fine. And you can do it even with an alias if you want to. And here's the thing. So early on, I thought to myself, how do I curb bad behavior then, right? If I'm not going to censor you, how am I going to curb that behavior? Well, two ways. One is, first, there's a moderation step. You got to make sure that if you're publishing a story, it's got to have at least one fact and at least one piece of evidence, right? There's some basic rules that we can put in place. Won't stop you from putting bad stuff out there. The next thing is the people vote on whether they think it's good, bad, real, or fake as well. So now we've got the whole audience coming in and affecting their reputation score. You remember when you were in school and you had a reputation, good or bad? That's the lever that I can use. If we're anonymous on the system, I got to have something that can identify bad behavior. So we do two things. When you publish something, we mark it for things, right? We got to mark it for violence. We got to mark it that it's inappropriate for young people. We got to have some markings about that, either through automation with AI stuff or through people or both, right? It's kind of both. You got to do it. So we're going to mark things to protect people from what they want to see. And you, as a consumer, can say whether you want to see it or not. So that's one level of filtering. The second part is the reputation score. So your reputation score as an author is affected by things in the moderation, fully transparent, so everybody sees exactly what was marked and what was not and why they got dinged on their whatever, clickbait score, right, that kind of stuff, and affected by you as the consumer, as the news consumer, your votes about how you voted on this thing. So that's the way we can do that. We're not going to censor anybody, because if you want to post stuff out there that isn't real, cool, you can do that. People are going to see that. If you don't have any facts, that are making any sense or any evidence that's any real, well, you're going to be dinged by that. And over time, I, as a news consumer, can say, you know what, don't even show me anybody who's got a score that's this low. Forget it. They're garbage, right? Don't want to see it. So you have the ability to filter that stuff. That's the best way that I can figure out to do this, right? That's what we've got in place.
With everything that gets posted on this platform, over time you would have all this data. Does it all get saved or archived? Like, would you be okay? Yeah,
man, it's all there all the time, and that's the thing. God, you're good at asking questions. Well done, Sam.
Thank you.
Think about this. If I'm a journalist and they're under pressure, they don't have enough resources, they don't have enough equipment, they don't have all this. Well, think about this. Now I can come into an arena in True News, and I have a giant web of facts and evidence that are produced by all journalists. I can now put stories together much quicker, which much less effort and cost to me, right? Because I can build upon and reference those facts and evidence that have been done and stories by other people, if I want to, right, in my story. So it's going to help journalists become even quicker and reduce the burden on them to produce, hopefully, good stuff, right, or bad stuff. Up to them.
Right. Okay, awesome. So if people wanted to go on True News, they can go on TrueNewsGlobal.com, right?
TrueNews.global. So instead of .com, it's TrueNews.global.
Even better.
Yeah.
And then your guys' your app's going to be coming out, and when is that coming out again?
Well, we're in the final stages of development, so we'll see. The crowdfunding is going to be critical to us to get this thing out the door.
Awesome.
We're going to do some crowdfunding in order to get people access to the alpha and the beta kind of releases, and then put it to full production.
Awesome.
Depends on how the crowdfunding goes to some degree.
Well, Kurt, please keep in touch with me, and then once you guys do launch your app, let me know, and I can let our listeners know from the East Coast to the West Coast, and we can get things going. And I appreciate you coming on the show. Our halftime is coming up, so we are going to go on a quick 5-minute break. But again, Kurt, I want to thank you for coming on. He is from True News, and our next guest, Bruce, will be coming in 5 minutes. So please stay tuned. You guys listen to Whatever Works. I'm Sam Works.
I'm Kyle.
Choking with a massive overdose of plastic trash? You'll be heartened to learn that governments and industries are teaming up to respond forcefully to this planetary crisis. Unfortunately, their response has been to engage in a global race to make more plastic stuff and to force poor countries to become dumping grounds for plastic garbage. Leading this Kafkaesque greed fest are such infamous plunderers and polluters as ExxonMobil, Chevron, Shell, and other petrochemical profiteers. With fossil fuel profits crashing, the giants are rushing to convert more of their oversupply of oil into plastic. But where to send the monstrous volumes of waste that will result? The industry's chief lobbyist outfit, the American Chemistry Council, looked around last year and suddenly shouted, "Eureka! There's Africa!" In particular, they're targeting Kenya to become a plastics hub for global trade in waste. However, Kenyans have an influential community of environmental activists who've enacted some of the world's toughest bans on plastic pollution. To bypass this inconvenient local opposition, the dumpers are resorting to an old corporate power play: free trade. Their lobbyists are pushing an autocratic trade agreement that would ban Kenyan officials from passing their own laws or rules that interfere with trade in plastic waste. Trying to hide their ugliness, the plastic profiteers created a PR front group called Alliance to End Public Waste. But hello, it's not public waste. Exxon and other funders of the Alliance make, promote, and profit from the mountains of destructive trash they now demand we clean up. This is Jim Hightower saying the real problem is not waste, but plastic itself. Rather than subsidizing more of the stuff, we should seek out and encourage people who are developing real solutions and alternatives.
We've all heard jokes that begin with a rabbi, a priest, and a minister walk into a bar. Well, a rabbi, a minister, and a deacon actually walk into the KCAA studios every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. to host the radio program Religion on the Line. And that's no joke. Together, they offer a mixture of humor and serious conversation about things that really matter in life and how to make our lives happier and more fulfilling. They compare religious doctrine and learn from each other while bringing a unique perspective of religion to the KCAA audience. Listen every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. for Religion on the Line, the intersection of humanity and divinity, right here on KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listeners behind.
Come to Hooters, where there's no such thing as a party of one. Located with the 60 and the 215 meet in Riverside, near Moreno Valley. For more info, Google Hooters Riverside.
There's only one thing you think of when you think of Hooters. Wings.
Wait, what?
With more styles, better flavors, and fresher wings, you could only be in the original American wing joint. Get them smoked, bacon-wrapped, original style, and now introducing new roasted wings. Roasted crispy to seal in the flavor and seal out half the calories. One taste and you'll think of nothing else.
We'll see about that.
Come to Hooters, where there's no such thing as a party of one. Located with the 60 and the 215 meet in Riverside, near Moreno Valley. For more info, Google Hooters Riverside.
There's only one thing you think of when you think of Hooters. Hooters, the original American wing joint.
Bob Vila here with my home improvement tip of the day. If you're in the dark about some of the latest advancements in flashlight technology, here's a quick summary. Conventional flashlights, which rely on bulky D-size batteries and bulbs with filaments, are increasingly being replaced by lights with LEDs. That's light-emitting diodes, or lights with fluorescent bulbs. Unlike other lights, LEDs have no filament to burn out. Instead, they're powered by tiny semiconductors. LEDs draw only a minuscule amount of power, so batteries last much longer than in conventional lights. Fluorescent lights are also taking an increasing share of the market. They're especially popular in lantern-type products. With their elongated fluorescent tubes, they put out a lot of light, so they do a good job of illuminating larger areas, say your dining room during a power outage. Fluorescents do take a lot of power, though, so you'll want to keep plenty of batteries on hand. Get more info at bobvila.com and right here at home with me, Bob Vila.
Raining out here in the Inland Empire. You guys are listening to Whatever Works. I'm Sam Works.
I'm Kyle Kerrigan.
And this is...
I'm Bruce McLaughlin.
Yes. There you guys go. You guys are listening on KCAA 106.5 and 1050 AM. There you go. Not fired. We had if you guys just tuned in for our first half of our show, we had a guest named Kurt Sullivan, and he's from True News. And if you guys want to hear anything about that, about how the news change and the corruption and all this good stuff and what he's doing in order to save us from, chaos, just go back on Spotify, our website, or even kcaradio.com, and you guys can go back at any time and listen to it. So tonight we have a second guest for the last half hour of our show, and it is Bruce, and he came into the building, and we just started talking, we chopped it up, and I did not want him to leave until he came on my show. So Bruce, thanks for asking your wife to allow you to stay on.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, so let's just give us a little background about you.
Well, I'm currently 50s, though. In 1973, I was kidnapped at the age of 3 and wasn't found until I was 10. So 7 years I was missing, moved frequently across the United States, 6 different last names. And at the time, I didn't know I was stolen. I did not find out until I was found. And the reason it wasn't brought to anybody's big attention as some of the other missing children of the 70s did by the 80s was the fact that who stole me. It was my mother. In 1970s, when a divorce happened, the mother always got the custody of the children.
Right.
While the LA courts looked at my mother and said, "Nah, you're crazy. The father gets it." And she proved him correct upon on my first visitation. She stole me. And my father finally found me in Alaska for the second time. And when I lived there for the second time. And that's the start of my weird life experience. But it was part of that and moving so much that I began developing a philosophy for myself that if there's an opportunity, take it. Because it's okay to fail. But do I want to look back in 5, 10, 20 years and go, I could have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't live by could haves.
Yeah, there's they went to I don't want to get this wrong term, but basically an old person home, whatever, community.
Retirement.
And, yeah, there you go. And they would interview all these people, and they asked them, like, what's your biggest regret? And for the most part, they all said it's not what they did, it's what they didn't do.
Yeah.
So I completely understand when you're talking about, like, take everything and go and run with it, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to look back and regret the things that you didn't do.
Exactly. And it's when I give advice to my friends, my kids, or whoever, that's the one thing I can, out of my life so far, I can say, good or bad, it has always served me well. Mm-hmm. Because even when it was bad, I learned something.
Right.
Right.
And if I never took the chance to do it, what lesson could I have learned? Mm-hmm. So that's been my philosophy. So that's led me, and that's all because of every 3 to 6 months I'm moving. So I had to constantly find new people to talk to, find new opportunities. I couldn't just let it happen to me. I had to take that charge. So yeah, sorry.
You're good.
So what I like to do is, as I've met so many people, it's like I've ran websites doing paranormal activity. I've done stuff where I'm in music videos. I do acting. I do scare haunts. I work at escape rooms because I want to experience anything I have the chance to experience. So, I mean, I'm at 50 years old, and I, every year, go out to the deserts of California, the Mojave Desert, and live out there for a week with a bunch of crazy people, recreating the world of Mad Max.
That is crazy.
Oh, that's wild.
And for all you youngsters who are listening to radio, explain what Mad Max is. It's a classic.
Oh, yeah. Well, recently, of course, we've had Mad Max Fury Road with Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron.
Yeah.
But prior to that, the original Mad Max movies was done with an actor that kind of has lost faith in the media and movies, Mel Gibson, and made this character iconic. It's basically what happens at the end of the world, who survives and how they survive. Mm-hmm. And it was created by the director. And in fact, the same director who does Happy Feet, the Dancing Penguin movies, is the same guy who created the whole Mad Max world. And it's post-apocalyptic. So those are the younger crowd who play Fallout. Yeah. And in fact, there's even a Mad Max game now.
Yes, it's actually pretty fun.
It is really fun. But you take that world. What happens after the bombs fall? What happens if the world economy collapses? How do you live? How do you survive? And this event I go to called Wasteland Weekend, originally was called I think it was called Mad Max Festival originally, and it was only 3 days. Now it's a week long, almost a week long. But you go to this, And they call it the party at the end of the universe, or at the end of the world. Because it's the idea of all these warring tribes that have spent years fighting, that one time a year, 1 week, we put it all aside and come party that we're still alive today. And I'm like, wow, why can't I think like that every day?
Huh,
so
right?
that's it's part of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have like pictures and videos of the previous ones you've been to,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I got tons of pictures. Anybody who's interested, definitely go look up Wasteland Weekend. It is an 18 and over event. It's kind of cool because there are a few vendors there, but compared to most events, it's very few. I mean, out of 4,000 people who attend this every year, there's maybe about 5 actual vendors that use what we call old world money. Outside of that, everything is trading. You trade, you barter for everything.
That's
awesome, dude.
That's pretty lit.
My son has become known as the Barter King because he wears a shirt that says King and he just barters all day. But he goes out first thing in the morning, 150 pounds worth of stuff on it in a backpack and carrying on his arms, and trades all day. Last year he came home with like 3 of those old style metal jerry cans, 2 swords, new backpacks. I mean, he came back with more. The first year he went, started with a bag of gummy bears and walked away with a Geiger counter.
What?
Dang.
There's something there for everybody. But what made this event really cool though is I thought it was, finding out about, this is going to be cool. This is going to be fun. Cosplay. And I do cosplay and stuff like that. And that's cool. Once got out there, it was really stepping into a new world and going, I'm home. Because everyone around you isn't looking at you like, oh, you're weird, you're new, you're this, you're that. Oh, this is what you do for, nobody cares. You're out there suffering in the heat, living the life in costumes. You're part of family. And everybody out there considers themselves family because we have all chosen to make this hard trek. We got people coming from all around the world doing this, and we're out there living it and living our best of who we truly want to be.
Wow.
So this is like Burning Man in a sense.
It makes Burning Man look like a joke to me.
Wow.
Okay, I used to go to Burning Man,
Yeah.
and I stopped going because it started getting really corporate. And
Yeah, I heard about
I was
Yeah.
like, that's not what Burning Man is supposed to be
No,
about. Burning Man
yeah.
was about the art, the exhibits, the expression, and they lost that to corporate.
Yeah.
The people who run Wasteland Weekend, absolutely, and that's why they put a cap on how many people can go, because they don't want it corporate. Why there's only 5 vendors or so that actually take old world money, because they don't want the corporate. This is purism to them. They had a vision for it. They slowly let it grow. Maybe 500 new people added tickets each year to slowly grow it. Just a few years ago, they were able to finally buy their own land. So it's now on a set owned land they have out in California City, which is funny. And have you ever heard of California City?
Yes. Yeah.
It is the largest city in America with this least amount of population.
Wow.
You can see a satellite view of California, and there's roads everywhere. Then you can see the world view, and it's nothing but desert. There's street signs in the middle of the desert.
It's wild. It's like Mentone, but the size of LA.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's wild.
No, that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
But so I do that every year. Along with that, some of my other things I do, I do cosplay. I've been doing cosplay for over 10 years, got my kids doing it. My son is autistic, and so to kind of help him out of that, I'd create costumes. And one of the costumes will always cover his face because he felt very shy. And the covering his face allowed him to be whatever character he became. One year, I made a Groot costume. It was after the first Guardians of the Galaxy. My son's 7 feet tall. He's tall. So I got to figure out, what do I make for him? Made him a Groot costume.
There we go.
Someone went to, a news station went to interview him at the con. And she asked him, how are you liking the con? All he said, I am Groot. Great. So how long did it make you to make this costume? I am Groot. Literally for 5 minutes, she's trying to ask him questions, and all he will say is, "I am Groot."
He
Stayed
became
in
Groot.
Yeah, stayed in character.
All the cosplayers understood and were dying laughing because we were watching this reporter get mad. And we were loving it, going, he's genius. He's staying in character.
Yeah.
And that's how he is. And I have pictures with him. He has Playboy bunnies on each arm. But he said the greatest part of his day when he was standing there and a little girl, probably like 3 years old, ran up to him and hugged his leg.
Oh,
Because he was Groot.
that's cute.
That's what
awesome.
cosplay's about.
Yeah, it really is. And that's, a lot of people, be it, the fur fandom, cosplay, they get a lot of the deviant reputation. But honestly, we love it because we're fans of
It's
what
the best community.
I know people who do fur costumes, and it's like, there's nothing like being a big giant teddy bear and greeting kids and seeing the smile on their faces. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, who wouldn't want to bring joy to other people?
Right.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And you also said you did like paranormal stuff, right?
Yeah, I used to run a website called Freakopedia.com. No longer up, but it is on the Wayback Machine. This was originally based around a TV show I was a huge fan of. And for a year before this TV show came out, there was an online presence of a website and a character. And this was all created by the original team who created the Blair Witch Project. And they made you believe there was a real person on the other end. You could talk to them, and you thought it was this person. Then the TV show come out. Fox messed up, and they ended up canceling it after one season. But I became friends with the original creators of it. And I said, hey, can I take this over and continue a story? They said, we don't own it. We don't care anymore. Here's all our stuff.
Wow.
And so they gave me discs and T-shirts and all this cool behind the scenes stuff. And I continued the story of I was a paranormal investigator looking for Derek Barnes, which was the character, because he suddenly disappeared.
Like, what happened? Right?
Yeah, so I'm playing up, I'm looking for him. In the show, his house looked a certain way, so I found in my local area a house that kind of looked almost exactly the same at the right angles. Yeah. So I do filming at certain angles, and I'm there looking for him. But that was the story part. Then I had my real investigations. So I mixed in playing in that idea of where does reality and fantasy blend? Mm-hmm. And I played that. So I'd give it real stories of things I really would. There's like in, City of Industry, Pomona area, there's a haunted graveyard. It is literally right off the freeway, and you can't see it. You have to take a trek to get back there. And I did investigations back there. I did a house that stood, like 80 years in this town, burnt down one Halloween. And so the next Halloween, I went there to do investigation. So I had real investigations that I would do with some fizzled, some worked kind of investigations. And then I'd have stuff what happens when you in the dryer that makes you lose your left sock. I mean, it was, I was playing on both sides. It was there to be as much entertaining as it was, informative.
Right.
And I think that's where I like to blend things I do.
There in college, I heard of the entire fraternity I was a part of went to this forest in by Kellogg Hill. I want to say it's in San Dimas.
Yes, it is.
The Enchanted Forest. What's your idea on that? What's your thoughts on the Enchanted Forest?
And I'll tell you this: San Dimas is where I lived all during this time.
Really?
So I know exactly, and that is exactly where I filmed.
That's amazing. Full circle.
Yeah. I had the best I could say. What I got from that area was a lot of floating orbs kind of idea.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of what happens with a lot of people, especially when in paranormal investigations, especially in the newer groups, they're so enthused and so excited, their mind's going to help add anything that isn't there.
Right.
So, you know, I played it very straight and going, here's clinical, here's what I want.
Okay.
This is what it really happened.
Yeah.
And I was okay with that.
We have about a minute and a half left, but I wanted to put my side of the story. And there's this YouTube channel. Once I remember it, I'll send you the link and stuff like that. But there's two guys, one who believes in like paranormal activity and one who just does not at all. And what they do is they travel around the world to haunted places to see.
I watched them.
Yeah, you watched them? Do you remember? It's two guys. It's
yeah, they now have it on, I think, Hulu. But it used to be YouTube. I can't remember their name. But yeah, I used to watch them.
It's been a couple of years. It's crazy.
They're really good guys. Great stuff they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that I used to watch all the time, especially since October's coming around and like spooky season.
That's the perfect time.
Yeah, I'll be telling you guys about that. And speaking of that, I would want you on our show in the month of October so we can talk more about your phenomenons and your stuff like
yeah, and I can tell you some great stories. I also work haunts, so I could tell you some great haunt stories.
That's awesome.
There we go.
All right, you guys, we only have about 2 minutes left. My engineer lied to me, but hey, it's okay. Joe, you're fired. I'm just kidding. But is there anything else you guys want to bring up or talk about before we head out? You're good?
Oh, yeah. I mean, thank you for having me on. This is great.
Bruce, I appreciate you. I met him about 15 minutes before the show started.
Yeah, this is crazy.
Yeah, it's a good stuff. So I love things that are spontaneous.
Oh, I do have one thing to say, and it goes right back to the beginning. To everybody who is or isn't listening, if there's a possibility to do or a chance to do something in your life that is not normally there, do it.
Do it. That's how I got here, guys. All right, you guys are listening to Whatever Works on KCAA. I'm Sam Works.
I'm Kyle Kerrigan.
I'm Bruce McLaughlin.
And we are out of here. Next week, tune in. We got another guest coming in. And stay safe.
1050 AM and 106.5 FM.
This segment sponsored by the generous support of the Dream Team. Looking for the keys to something bigger and better? Downsizing or relocating to the perfect spot? Oscar Ramirez from Century 21 Lois Lauer Real Estate and Matt Flores from Secure Choice Lending are here to help you sell or buy with their trusted and experienced knowledge and advice. People are calling Oscar and Matt at 951-751-3249. That's 951-751-3249. Real estate and loan advisors Oscar and Matt can give you a no-cost consultation. You don't have to buy anything. Matt and Oscar can help you figure your way through the complicated real estate market. Email Oscar at loislauer.com or on Instagram at Oscar Ramirez Garcia and Matt Flores at securechoicelending.com. Don't let today's real estate pitfalls stop you from dreaming. Make your new home dreams come true. DRE number 0207-0344. Se habla español.
Semper Fix-It joins our community and our nation in honoring all our American war veterans who proudly served our country. Let's remember those who fought and sometimes sacrificed their very own lives to secure our freedoms. Let's also remember our troops overseas this 2022. This message courtesy of our good friends at Semper Fix-It in Temecula. They are always working to keep our community moving in a positive direction. For more information, call 951-395-5700.
It's time to shop in the cool, relaxed comfort of the Tri-City Shopping Center in Redlands, conveniently located on the I-10 freeway between the Alabama and Tennessee exits. Bring the kids too and watch them play in the only indoor fun center, High Five Indoor Playground, where parents are welcomed on the playground. Birthday celebrations are encouraged, so make plans for some great fun at the mall. More reasons why the Tri-City Center is called the Mall with a Heart.
This segment is sponsored by the Calamasa Event Center, and we thank them for their community support. The Calamasa Event Center, formerly the Calamasa Country Club, supports not only this radio station, but fun along with great memories in your future. They're ready for your special event. If you're looking for a sophisticated and friendly place to hold your special wedding, anniversary, birthday party, fundraiser, and more, then you need to contact the Calamasa Event Center. For a no-fuss, smooth event, contact Lori at 909-553-2619. That's 909-553-2619. Or Google Calamasa Event Center and get ready for fun.
NBC News Radio, I'm Chris Coraggio. It's a day of remembrance as the U.S. marks the 21-year anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks. Somber ceremonies were held to remember the nearly 3,000 lives lost when hijacked planes slammed into the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. President Biden spoke today at the Pentagon. First Lady Jill Biden shared her thoughts at the Flight 93 Memorial in Shanksville, and the names of all the victims at the World Trade Center were read aloud in New York City. It's all clear at Newark Liberty Airport after a suspicious package forced a temporary lockdown. David Folk Thomas reports.
It happened Sunday afternoon around 12:45. The New York Post reports Port Authority police cleared out levels 1 and 2 of bustling Terminal C as a precautionary measure after learning of the package. The FAA then issued a ground stop for inbound flights. After an investigation found there was no threat, passengers were allowed back into the terminal at 1:45 and inbound flights resumed at 2:30. The disruption delayed a total of at least 59 flights.
David Folk Thomas reporting. Vice President Kamala Harris is defending the idea that most Republicans are not extremists.
Most people in America know that it is not helpful to our country when we have people who are denying elections or trying to obstruct the outcome of an election.
Appearing on NBC's Meet the Press, she said that despite a poll saying 70% of Republicans do not believe the 2020 election was legitimate, she did not get that sentiment after speaking with Americans around the country. Harris also said people shouldn't get caught up in President Biden's description of the Make America Great Again ideology as semi-fascist. She went on to insist that Biden has been working across the aisle his entire political career. Spanish tennis star Carlos Alcaraz has won the U.S. Open. It's his first major. He beat Norway's Casper Ruud today in 4 sets. I'm Chris Coraggio, NBC News Radio.